Hi, welcome to phase one of my Equitable Classroom Guidance Management Plan. The first phase talks about being an authoritative educator, my alignment with the behavior theory, alignment with Glasser, and finally, equity. In this first phase, I talked about an authoritative educator having high standards for all students. She or he will be seen as warm, friendly. They really work hard on establishing a relationship with their students and they set boundaries. Sometimes these teachers are also called warm demanders. Students feel safe and capable whenever they're in these types of classroom and environments. They usually have an increase in their achievement, and as a result of this, dropout rates have decreased according to research. I aligned myself with Glasser because I believe students are capable of controlling their own behavior. Students are capable of making good choices, but teachers must model how students will make these choices. And then once students are accustomed to making good choices, the teacher would then step back and serve as a guide. Within this behavior theory, there's a no excuse policy. Students accept the consequences that they are given, they accept the choices that they make, and classroom meetings are very essential because within these classroom meetings, students are exercising their voice and talking about some choices that they have made or other people have made and how it impacted the whole classroom community. I stated that equity is the representation of all voices and respecting all voices. And whenever we have these classroom meetings, all voices are represented. We allow every student the opportunity to speak. And whenever someone's speaking, we're respectful. There's no put downs. It's a judgment free zone whenever we're having our classroom meetings. Um, Also, I wanted to talk about voices being an example of multiple perspectives. I have a very diverse class. Of my 18 students, one third of them are ELL students. I have students from Saudi Arabia, India. I have Caucasian students, African American students. I have a wide variety of students. I have multiracial students. So whenever they're using their voice, we get to see and experience multiple perspectives. The goal with including equity into the classroom is to prepare our students for the ever changing, diverse world that we live in. Students have to be held accountable for their choices and also held to high expectations if they're going to thrive in the global world that we live in today. Here's some data that breaks down the demographics of my classroom. As I mentioned, I have a very diverse class. Almost 50% of my class is African American. However, I have a good portion of Hispanic students, almost one third of them are Hispanic. I have students who identify as Asian. Inside of that Asian category, the students from Saudi Arabia, India, and then I have a multiracial student as well as a Caucasian student. The breakdown of my classroom, I have more girls in my classroom than boys, and as a result of that, there was a lot of talking in the beginning of the school year, lots of drama. But since the implementation of the plan, we've shut down a lot of the drama and the cattiness that the girls tend to keep up. Here are the demographics on the lower campus of my school. My school has two campuses, a lower campus and an upper campus. This is the pre-K through fourth grade profile. As you can see here, I serve as a third grade teacher, and we have a pretty high population as well as fourth grade. So within those 1,001 students, most of those students are male. And I was very surprised to see that data that most of the students in our school are male when I have a higher population of female. Comparing the school's demographics to my demographics, I would say that I was surprised to realize that I didn't have students with disabilities as compared to the 5.6% of the school population of students with disabilities. I'm actually surprised. This is my first year not having a student with disabilities. I also noticed that I have only two AIG students in my classroom, and the school makeup is 2.1. So I wonder if other teachers across the school or grade level have less than that 1.1%. McKinney-Vento are the students who identify as homeless or multiple families living in one home. I have one student that identifies as McKinney-Vento in my classroom, and 2.7% of the population of the school is McKinney-Vento. I have a higher pocket of ELL students in my classroom than the school, and I was a little bit surprised that I only have one student with the 504 plan when usually in the past I've had four students in my classroom with the 504 plan. My school is a Title I school, just FYI. The goal of my equitable classroom guidance management plan was to create a safe and inclusive learning environment that develops a lifelong learner and leader. I want students to make good choices, accept the responsibility of their choices, and I want them to work collaboratively and cooperatively with diverse learners in their learning space. The world is changing. This is a global world that we live in. We have to be respectful. We have to examine multiple perspectives, and we have to think about how will I function in the real world if I can't respect my neighbor and my neighbor has a different background or culture or way of thinking? So I think the work that we're doing here and now will definitely benefit the students in their future lives. To track the effectiveness of my plan, I'm tracking the minor and major behavior offenses and how they decrease over time. Whenever a student bounces out to a buddy room, I have them complete a reflection chart that has to then be signed by a parent or guardian. And I use Class Dojo as a means of communication. So I'll send a heads up letter to the parent saying, hey, mom, dad, so and so's coming home with a reflection sheet, just so you know. And so I can track how many messages I'm sending out per week, per day, and how many reflections students are having to do. But I've noticed that students have decreased the amount of reflections they've had to do since the implementation of the plan. The teaching philosophy that I aligned with was the progressive. A progressive is teacher is student centered, problem solving, developing students as individuals, focusing on the positive outcomes. It's more of experience and exploration rather than rote memorization, facts, textbook. We're doing more real world applications, engaging in academic discourse, participating in debates. That's what learning is all about, in my opinion. It's not textbook and writing facts and copying off the board. Here's the outline of my classroom. As you can see, I use flexible seating, lots of bean bags in my classroom. I have wobble stools, plastic crates, pillows, rocking chairs. Also, if you'll notice, I don't have a desk. I take the opportunity of not having the desk to force myself to move around. I'm not sitting in one place. I'm not stationary. I'm moving around talking to different groups. I'm asking them questions. I'm making suggestions, and I'm moving, constantly floating. I'm serving as a facilitator and guiding students instead of me doing all the heavy lifting and just feeding them, and feeding them, and them not really working themselves. These are the anti-bias curriculum statements that I align with the most. Making sure that students have a sense of belonging, affirming their identities and cultures, making sure that we're all engaging in an environment that is joyful, and all members have the opportunity to feel safe and respected, and it's some place to um, thrive in where you can live, learn, work together, and in a diverse and inclusive setting. The goal is to make sure that my environment is free of bias.